Okay, picture this. It's 3 in the morning. You're wide awake, just staring at the ceiling, and your brain is going a million miles an hour. You're replaying that awkward thing you said at work, you're mentally composing emails for tomorrow, and oh yeah, that super embarrassing moment from high school, it's back. Sound familiar? Yeah, we've all been there. But what is up with that? Why does our brain decide that the absolute best time for an intense, soul-searching monologue is when all we want is to get some sleep? Well, let's really get into it, because the answer is not only fascinating, it might just completely change how you feel about those sleepless nights. First off, if this is you, you are definitely not alone, not even close. Studies show that something like 94% of people experience these kinds of intrusive, unwanted thoughts. It's a pretty universal part of being a person. So what's actually happening in our heads? Well, it's actually pretty simple when you break it down. During the day, your brain is just slammed. It's juggling tasks, conversations, notifications, a constant barrage of stuff. But at night, all that external noise just fades away, and your brain, finally left to its own devices, decides it's time to sort through the day's mail. It starts unpacking all the worries and ideas you pushed to the side earlier. Now, this internal chatter isn't just random static. No, it's the work of a very specific and incredibly important system in your brain. So let's pull back the curtain and meet the star of our show, the default mode network. The default mode network, or DMN for short, is basically what it sounds like. It's your brain's default setting. It's the network that automatically kicks into gear when your mind isn't actively focused on some task in the outside world. You know, it's what your brain is doing when you're daydreaming, when your mind wanders. That's your DMN taking over. And here's what's so interesting. Look at what the DMN is busy doing. It's thinking about you, about your relationships with other people. It's digging through memories from the past and trying to plan for the future. In a nutshell, the DMN is your brain's own personal narrator. It's always working, trying to piece together a coherent story of who you are. This really shows the balance perfectly. When you're focused on something out there in the world, like driving a car or even just listening to me talk right now, your DMN activity goes down. But the second your focus drifts inward to your own thoughts and daydreams, bam, the DMN lights right back up. It's the brain's home base. So here's the crucial link. When that internal story turns negative and gets stuck on a repetitive loop, what we call rumination, it's because the DMN is in overdrive. This kind of hyperconnectivity is often seen in things like depression and anxiety, and it's what makes those nighttime thought spirals feel so inescapable. But what if that's not the whole story? This is where things get really, really cool. It turns out the very darkness that seems to trigger all this overthinking might actually hold the key to turning it into a kind of superpower. I just love this quote because it completely reframes the whole situation. We tend to think of darkness as just an absence of something, an empty space. But what if it's actually an enabler? What if it allows for a different, maybe even more powerful way of thinking? So get this, research from Dr. Allison Jinsu at the University of Minnesota found this amazing link between light and our emotions. She discovered that bright lights basically act like an emotional amplifier. They make us feel everything more intensely, both the good feelings and the bad ones. And her study was fascinating. Under bright lights, people rated everything as more extreme. Food was spicier, people were more attractive, juice was more delicious. But under dim lights, their emotional reactions just cooled way down. Everything was just okay. It's like dimming the lights literally helps us think more rationally, more objectively, by turning down the volume on our emotional swings. But that's not all. Darkness also makes us feel less inhibited, less self-conscious. A study from 2013 found that when we're in a dimly lit space, we feel freer from constraints. And that feeling triggers what psychologists call a more risky, explorative processing style, which is just a fancy way of saying it's the perfect mindset for a creative boost. I mean, just check out this comparison. Broad daylight can be a staggering 100,000 lux. Your average office is about 500, but the study found the sweet spot for creative problem solving was way down at just 150 lux. So that nighttime brain of yours, free from the emotional glare of bright lights and feeling less inhibited, is actually primed for some major creative breakthroughs. Okay, so our brain at night has this hidden potential for clarity and creativity. That's great. But how do we stop it from just spiraling into a pit of anxiety and actually use that potential? All right, let's get into some practical tools you can use to harness, not just tame, this powerful inner world. First things first, and this is the most important rule of all. Do not fight your thoughts. When you try to push a thought away, you create what's called a rebound effect. It's like someone telling you, don't think about a pink elephant. The thought just comes back stronger. Fighting your thoughts just fuels the entire anxiety engine. So what do we do instead? We interrupt the cycle. We create some mental space. First, just label the thought. Don't get caught up in its story. Just step back and observe it. Like, that's an anxious thought. Or, okay, that's just my brain thinking. This creates some much-needed distance. Second, try this cool trick called articulatory suppression. Silently repeat a single, neutral word like the over and over. This keeps the verbal part of your brain occupied, making it harder for those intrusive thoughts to take hold. And finally, gently redirect your focus. The goal isn't frantic distraction, but to give your mind a calm anchor, like reading or music, which clears the way for that creative, objective thinking to emerge. And this is the real takeaway here. The goal is never to wrestle your mind into silence. You can't. It's impossible. The real goal is to change your relationship with your thoughts, to learn to see them as just passing mental events, not urgent commands or absolute truths. You're learning to work with your brain, not against it. So the next time you find your mind racing in the dark, remember its hidden potential. Remember that it has this power for clarity and creativity. And instead of fighting it, try a new approach. Acknowledge the thought, and then gently guide your attention to a quieter space. You have the tools to harness its power. So what will your first step be tonight?